He tweeted, to save American democracy, it's not a democracy, it's a republic, but who am I? I'm not a professor. He said, to save American democracy, Trump must hang. The sooner and the higher, the better. Do you remember when you would say, hey, healthcare costs are too high, and the left would look at you and say, oh my gosh, he's talking about lynching. That's code for lynching. Here they're actually talking about lynching the president. And the left is okay with it. Media is pretty okay with it. Antifa is also excused by the left. And we have to make sure we never excuse it. We don't excuse the Nazis, and we don't excuse Antifa. We know exactly who they are. Steven Crowder is a good friend of the program and quite honestly, I mean, a brave guy. He went on undercover to an Antifa rally and actually infiltrated Antifa online and has just released a video. If we could play just a couple of cuts here before we bring Steven on. They handed Steven Crowder a knife because they thought he was with Antifa. Steven Crowder joins us now. Hi, Steven.
Hey, Mr. Beck. Hey, I hate to ever do this to correct you. They handed my producer, not Gay Jared, a knife because they recognized me on the streets really quickly. So we put him undercover with full wig and prosthetics. And it was my job to get him out of there because he's a frail, small man, which means he fit in better with Antifa.
So, I mean, how astonished were you that they were handing out knives?
Gosh, it's a good question. I go back and forth, and here's why, Glenn. Before we did this, I wondered if, listen, they're just calling Ben Shapiro a Nazi. They're just calling me a Nazi because they want to justify their behavior, right? They don't really think people are Nazis, so they probably won't really get violent. They just want to whip people up. And I would go back and forth. Then I realized, wait, these people are delusional. They actually think Orthodox Jew Ben Shapiro is a notorious Nazi. They actually think I'm an alt-right, secret Trump administrative op. That was what surprised me most, was how delusional these people are. And worse than that, people who go and watch it, it's available at LottoCenter.com, or they can search it on YouTube. They talk about bringing in AR-15s, how they have handguns. Now, listen. We all know here, I'm a supporter of the legal exercise of the Second Amendment. So you can have an AR-15, you can have handguns. But then one guy says, I have a sawed-off shotgun in my trunk, which is not legal, as far as I know, anywhere. And they talk about how their last-ditch effort is to lure. They use the word lure, is to lure them here toward the parking lot by President Circle where these guns are in their trunk. So could it be just a bunch of big talk? Probably, and it was really, really hard to know who was serious with these sort of androgynous, pseudo-pansexuals. I don't know this one person what they were. They seemed like a ragtag bunch. But at a certain point, we had to hand this over to the cops. And detectives actually thanked us for doing some of this infiltration. They had been following these people for a while, but weren't able to actually get into their groups. They installed an encrypted messaging app on our phone, which is how they communicate exclusively. They used code names, and like I said, we're a couple of late night podcast hosts. We cracked all of it. No one at ABC, NBC, CBS could figure this out. No one at any point. That's what shocked me.
So you've cracked this. You went in. You showed what they were saying. You showed that they're clearly for violence. They are talking on tape about luring people to the parking lot where they can shoot them. They actually handed your producer a knife. You're going to go down by the crowd. Here, take this knife. I mean, what was he going to mow the lawn with the knife, one blade at a time? I mean, it's clear what they were doing. So
you also handed him an ice pick. So it was like a clown car of weapons. They handed him a knife and then a screwdriver and then like a prison shank. It's all on tape. They handed him multiple weapons, Glenn, and we showed this to the local affiliates. We go, hey, listen. While the police there were reviewing the footage for authenticity, this local guy, the local Fox, I said, listen, here, watch this, and they're handing my producer like 3 weapons, and they just said, well, we're working here, kid. I said, aren't you working on news? I mean, what universe am I in?
So, Stephen, were there any arrests made, and you couldn't get any of the press at all? No press, mainstream, was interested in the video.
There were multiple arrests made. Yeah, and they were arrests made because of our content.
Right.
The one girl who called herself Honeybee, her name was Jenna, and you can see in our video she had a taser on her, and she ended up tasing some guy on the ground later that night. Not only that, you want to hear something? I know that this is serious, but what's crazy and what is funny is how the media doesn't take any of this seriously. After she was in police custody, they still didn't boot my producer off the encrypted app. She told my producer, "You better give me that knife back, or I'll involve the police." These people are delusional.
Oh my gosh!
You're worrying about a stolen knife in this spot. Stephen, how did you infiltrate from the beginning? What was the process of actually getting them to trust you guys?
Well, here's the thing. I'm not that smart. And because I'm not that smart, I work really, really hard, and I have a team of people who are brilliant. And I have a researcher, a guy, just call him Reg, and we actually we have several accounts that are involved in these groups. So if nothing else, Antifa will have to look over their shoulder for the rest of their lives. They'll never know who's real and who's not. So we had several accounts in there that were created. We got into their private groups after they were announced as an officially recognized terrorist organization. They started playing everything really close to the chest. So in a private closed-circuit group, met with them there. They did some vetting, looking at these accounts, and so we would populate these accounts that look really left. You wouldn't be able to know if you were to look at it. There's a long-standing history. It would take months or years for someone else to try and do what we've been doing. We've been doing this for a long time. And then we met with their leader. I don't know if it's a male or female. You can watch the tapes. I really don't know. Which is like a gift from God, because as a comedian, it's like, it still makes this funny. It still makes this funny. Tank is a transgender. So we met with them. My producer, Jared, met with them. They installed an encrypted messaging app on the phone, which doesn't allow you to take screenshots, doesn't save anything. I think these messages are self-destructing. Luckily, we have another phone, so we could just take pictures of the screen with our other phone. They didn't think this one through, and they started communicating. And what's hilarious is, they're so easy to trick. So they were communicating like screen names Firebird, Ski Mask, Xevious, and then Will. So we immediately found him on Facebook.
Will.
That's a good code name.
We found out where he lived.
How do they know? How do they know my name is Bill? It's not Will. My name is Bill.
If you want to use a real name, just call yourself Bob.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
And then there was this one lady. To give you an idea, they're so egotistical. Later that day, there was a black girl who assaulted somebody, and so what we did was, with one of the profiles posted, "Hey, yeah, slay, girl, slay, like you go," just posted this video randomly. And sure enough, she showed up and she said, "Hey, that's me." So we immediately ID'd her as well. It was so easy and so quick because we know how they operate, and they crave this attention among their peers.
So did you take the group as a whole, Stephen, as a real threat or a bunch of morons?
Here's the thing. I know that in different cities there are different kinds of Antifa, right? So these kids were kind of sad, but in other cities they look, you look at it and it looks like it's, oh my gosh, is that like a prison gang? So the one constant is violence. And people watching this video, we aggregated a bunch of content as their radio interviews. When they do speak out, they have said they are very willing to commit violence. That's what differentiates them from most other groups, is their willingness to commit violence, basically as policy. And here's the thing. They call everyone a Nazi. And so they say it is justifiable to punch Nazis. That's part of their policy. Well, they call Ben Shapiro a Nazi. They call me a Nazi, so what are they going to call you? They justify if someone films them, they see that as a violence-worthy offense, because they claim you have no right to film them. That's a violation of their rights, so they can physically assault you. So they justify violence. They'll say we only justify violence in self-defense, but self-defense can be, hey, you're a Nazi, or hey, you're filming me with your Android. So that is what I will say. These kids, I don't know. There could have been a lot of talk. They did have weapons. They did have tasers. Some of them were arrested, but it really could erupt and come to a head and get a lot worse unless people start calling them out for what they are. Here's the thing. When the media says, it's every single local story, this was at Ben Shapiro's speech, was people showing up to protest controversial speaker Ben Shapiro, but they didn't call him controversial. They called him a Nazi. So when the press says Ben Shapiro, extreme conservative, but they don't say protesters who call him a Nazi and or burn the flag and bring shivs to the event, guess what? They've changed that narrative. Ben Shapiro is the extremist.
Yeah.
The person with the ice pick screwdriver and clown car trunk full of armament is nobody.
But I will tell you this, Stephen. I don't think the American people, when they see those people in the masks, acting the way they are, throwing and breaking glass and turning over cars, whatever. I don't think people see those guys as the good guys. I don't think even the people on the left. I've talked to people who are big time leftists. Or I shouldn't say leftist, real diehard Democrats, and they have said, I'm more afraid of our side than I am of your side. I mean, your side is in control. Our side, the Antifa stuff on the college campuses is way out of control. Thank you for exposing this, Stephen. Really appreciate it. You can find him at louderwithcrowder.com, and he does a late night thing. And if you don't know Stephen, you need to. He is an up-and-coming superstar and doing some really amazing work. Thanks, Stephen.
We have an update on the Mad Pooper story.
We do? Did they find her?
We have found the Mad Pooper. It's,
okay, so if you don't know this story, where is it? Colorado,
yeah.
Colorado Springs, I think. There's this woman who, do you have a picture of her?
I do not know.
Okay, so she looks normal. We've only seen pictures of her from the back, and she's wearing her workout clothes, and she looks fit and normal. And I don't know what somebody who poops in people's front yard look like, but
you didn't explain that part of the story yet.
So she's this normal woman who apparently just moved into the neighborhood or is just starting to do this, but nobody knew who she was. She goes for these jogs every day, and several times during the jog, she'll stop, pull down her pants, and crap in somebody's front yard like a dog. And people are like coming out of the house and like, what? Hey, what are you doing? And she pulls up her pants and she runs away. She did it at a CVS. They have bathrooms right inside, lady. She did it right by the parking, in the median. And so the police have been looking for her. People have been saying, hey, they're calling her the Mad Pooper. If you see her, we need to talk to her about hygiene. So they found her.
They did, kind of. And I have to say, I am going to come in the skeptical side of this particular update. Because the Mad Pooper story needs to have a conclusion. I think we all agree on that.
Oh, I think so.
That's a definite. But this update is questionable to me. A man claiming to be the spokesman of a jogger named the Mad Pooper, who reportedly has been, as you said, doing her business on the lawns of Colorado homes and in CVS parking lots, says the woman is struggling after gender reassignment surgery and as she battles a traumatic brain injury. Now, that first part, you're like, okay, wow, this is really a sad story, and it's not really funny anymore, and I hope she's okay. That's kind of how I reacted when I read that. However, it gets a little stranger as we go. The unidentified man, so we don't know who this is. How is this a news story? This is, by the way, Fox News is reporting this. How is this a news story?
Wait. The unidentified man?
He just said he was the spokesman for the Mad Pooper. They don't even know his name, but they're reporting it. Now, it could be that the Mad Pooper is such an important story that any minor development, any twist and turn in this incredible tale must be brought to our attention.
Of course,
and of course, I believe that as I'm doing it. So I want that's clear. KRDO had reported this, I guess, a station in Colorado. Now, the YouTube video in which he claimed this has since been removed. So again, do we know if this guy is really the spokesman? Why does she have a spokesman? Most pooping does not come along with a spokesperson. There's no PR.
Yeah. I don't. Maybe there's a PR crisis firm that, like, hey, have you been caught pooping in people's yards? Call us.
Right. Okay.
I'm not sure.
Right. So let's just say this is a really sad start to this. Now, he said he was speaking on the behalf of the jogger named Shirley, and said Shirley can no longer control herself after undergoing the gender reassignment surgery. So far, you might say maybe, right? Okay, they posted this, then he thought better of it, deleted it, never identified themselves. Maybe, right? And it's a sad thing, hopefully not true. This is where it kind of loses me, though. He added, the jogger's actions are protected under the First Amendment.
Oh, my gosh.
And the government cannot control when and where she decides to do her business.
Yes, they can. Yes, they can.
Now, I'm as libertarian as they come.
Yeah, right. But you're not pooping in my front yard. I'm sorry.
That is not a constitutional principle.
No. Let's find that one in the Bill of Rights.
Right.
If you're pooping in somebody's yard as a statement, like I'm going to I'm going to the White House and I'm going to poop on the front lawn, I still don't think you can do that. But you're at least trying to get into the First Amendment.
It's a little closer.
That's the way I speak. And a lot of people talk right through their butt. So maybe, but you better be a good attorney.
Yeah.
If you're just coming and crapping in my lawn, I'm sorry, there's no right for you. No,
No, I don't think so. No. Now, a criminal defense attorney addressed this First Amendment claim.
How much money was spent on this story?
I don't know, but I love it. Jeremy Lowe, he said, defecating in someone's yard is definitely not protected under the First Amendment, and it's actually a crime. This is actually the worst thing the family could do. Maybe they thought the videos would make the situation go away, but they won't. People all over the world are talking about this, and the police will catch her. The man in the video will also be called in court to testify. So no First Amendment protection for the mad pooper. And I find that to be very shocking and sad.
No.
Because I think if the bad pooper can't get the constitutional rights she deserves, who can? That's how I look at it. It's that serious. And on the other side of this,
there's so many jokes, but they all have expletives in them.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So there's a lot of jokes. Yeah,
Okay.
I think we should.
This is another important update. This one actually is an important update, but to a bizarre story.
Mm-hmm.
Saudi Arabia has, after the big controversy that we talked about earlier in the week, where they were saying women shouldn't be able to drive because their brains shrink 2 sizes too small when they go shopping.
No, do not take science from Saudi Arabia and twist it.
Okay. All right.
Look at you. Look at you.
I do.
It's not what he said. What he said was, if you go shopping as a woman, you go ahead. Yeah, let him say it, because he says it's so much better. Go ahead. No, that's not it.
Ooh, wrong one.
That's not it. Do you have it?
Oh, there it is.
Okay. Now listen to that. Okay, so
it's a lot clearer.
In case you didn't know, what he said was, the first time that you go and a woman goes shopping, she loses half of her brain. Okay?
Mm-hmm. No, she doesn't lose it, right? It shrinks.
It shrinks.
Okay.
Yeah, she didn't lose it. It's not like Lost and Found.
Hey, it doesn't come out like a little small credit card size slot in her head.
Stop it. We're talking science. So it shrinks to half the size.
Okay.
If she goes shopping once. If she goes again, it shrinks again by half. So now it's only a quarter. If she would go a third time, it's an eighth. And every time she goes shopping, it gets smaller and smaller. So women are never fully brainless, okay? Because we're just cutting it in half each time. So
there'll always be something left to cut in half.
There's always something left. But that's why they can't drive. Now,
I will say shrinking 2 sizes too small, I thought pretty well summarized that. I mean, the only thing I didn't add is extra shopping trips.
That turns you into the Grinch.
I know.
And
well, I thought
perhaps there's more than what comes in boxes and bags. I'm just saying.
It's possibly true.
Ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Saudi Arabia now, after that controversy, and the reason why that clip happened apparently is they were in a big debate over whether women would be able to drive. Now,
right.
That women,
and everybody says no. Right.
But
I mean, when you say yes until you have science that backs it up, like he had.
Now there's real science. Yeah. So anyway, Saudi Arabia was the only country on earth that did not allow women to drive, and that is actually going to change now. They were the only one that would impose the driving restrictions. The royal decree will now implement the provisions on traffic regulations, including the issuance of driving licenses for men and women alike. I mean, as bad and ridiculous as this is, it's actually a big step forward for them. And
what's truly amazing is we're talking about oppression. and how bad things are. And yet there was a serious discussion on television in a relatively modern society, a big player in the world, serious discussion about how a woman's brain shrinks every time she goes shopping. We're oppressed? No, I think we're pretty good. I think we're pretty good. Ben Sass, who I think could run for president in 2020, 2024, and possibly win, be the president of the United States. He said this. His responses. 1, oh, let goobers and non-goobers agree on this. Racists like you are to blame, but Putin's agencies also love using you as their divisive tool. Next tweet. Don't get me wrong, we'll always have brown shirt, pajama boy Nazis like you and your lonely pals stoking division. But here's an America 101. Don't get America? Or you don't get America. You said you do not have some human right, some abstract thing given to you by God or something like that, end quote. Actually, that's exactly what America declares we do have. People are the image bearers of God, created with dignity and inalienable rights. The 5th tweet was, sadly, you don't understand human dignity. A person's skin, ancestry, and bank balance have nothing to do with their intrinsic value. This declaration of universal dignity is what America is all about. Madison called our Constitution the greatest reflection on human nature. You talk about culture, but you don't know squat about Western heritage, which sees people not as tribes, but as individuals of limitless worth. The celebration of universal dignity is our culture, and it rejects your white culture, crybaby politics. It rejects all identity politics. Sometime after moving back into your parents' basement, you knockoff Nazis fell in love with a reheated 20th century will to power garbage. Your ideas aren't just hateful, un-American poison. They're also just so dang boring. Only Ben Sass would use the word dang. The future doesn't belong to you, your stupid memes. Get a real job, clown. Find an actual neighbor to serve. You'll be happier. Have a nice day. That's a great response.
He's not only the only one who used dang, but especially on Twitter.
Yeah, I know.
Where like the F-bombs flow pretty heavily.
Have you noticed that's really common everywhere now? I mean, everywhere.
It's interesting. Like I don't even remember when this happened, but now like a lot of normal television stations like USA, S-bombs all the time in the primetime programming. Like,
I think it's I don't know when it happened, but in the last 10 years, it's everywhere now. I mean, I was actually listening to a preacher dropping F-bombs, and I'm like, what? It's Bill O'Reilly. Very uncomfortable things are going to be said. He's going to talk about responsibility and history and perspective, and I warn you, it's not that you're going to be uncomfortable. You will be unsafe for the next few minutes. Welcome to the program, Bill O'Reilly. How are you, sir?
Boy, you're maligning me already, Beck. Well, I am here to spread
love.
Spread joy.
Joy, love, joy. Yeah. So Bill, yes. I have a question for you. First of all, it was good to see you on Fox this week, and good to see a number 1 finish. I think one of the first ones they've had since you left. But it was nice to see
we had a big night on Tuesday, and it was very interesting.
Yeah, it was. Could I ask you a question? And you may not, you don't have to answer this, but it's not rhetorical. If you were so dangerous that you had to be removed from the building and your show taken off, why would you ever have you on as a guest?
Look, Beck, I told you from the very beginning, and I told everybody, and I had a written statement, all right, that it was a pure business decision made. And we all know, because you went through it yourself, Beck.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, that the evil far-left cabal put together a fiction, a fantasy to silence my voice like they did with you and many, many others, and then they tried it with Sean Hannity, and it didn't work with Sean Hannity. So he has empathy for me. We actually, Hannity and I have built a big empathy tent on my front lawn.
Oh my gosh! Well, they're becoming very popular. They're very nice. They're very nice. So wait a minute.
Is there any thinking American? And this is what is the crux of your question and my answer.
Yeah.
Any thinking American knows what happened, and let's just make sure it doesn't happen again to anyone.
So no, actually, any thinking American is thinking to themselves right now, with number 3 finishes since you left. Any thinking American is thinking they should put Bill O'Reilly back on. Is there a possibility you go back to Fox News?
Look, I can't speak to any of that at this point because we still have legal stuff going on.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to.
So what you're saying here? Let me just say, what I'm hearing is
no. But
you're not officially finished with the paperwork that you're not necessarily on Cobra yet. So it wouldn't be that hard to reverse the thrusters.
It's a little bit more complicated than that. When I left, I formed a legal team.
Yeah.
All right, and I told them, you get to the bottom of this with names, with dates, with everything that you can get, and we're going to put it out to the American public.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we started it a couple of weeks ago with a woman who was arrested in Detroit, filing a false police report.
Tell that story. Right. We told it that, but it's worth
she was
retelling.
Charged. This is a woman who I never saw before, never spoke before, who went on The View and said I said untoward things to her.
And she was the one who said you called her hot chocolate or something like that.
All of that. A total lie, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay? And again, I never even saw the woman in my life. Mm-hmm. So now we know.
Explain what she did, what happened in Detroit.
All right. So she, a few years ago, calls the police, tells the police that a man threatened to harm her. The police come. The story turns out to be bogus. She's arrested and charged.
Okay, wait a minute. You are for a broadcaster of your skill. That was a terrible telling of that story. Here's what happened. She is at home. She has a disagreement with her boyfriend. She says, "I'm going to call the police and tell them that you are pistol whipping me." And he says, "No, you're not. I don't have a pistol." And she said, "Oh, you watch me." She calls police. She tells them, "I'm being beaten with a pistol by this guy. Help, help, help." 911, they come. The cops, come in. They look at the situation. Doesn't look like anybody's being beaten. And they say, "Where's the gun, ma'am?" And she said, "Well, he didn't have a gun." "Well, was he beating you?" "Well, no, he wasn't beating me." Wow. They arrested her.
Right.
For making a false charge.
And charged her.
Right.
And then in addition to that, the stuff that she said she had tweeted 3 or 4 years earlier. She had tweeted the exact phrases she was talking about herself. So
she called herself hot chocolate?
Thank God that Newsmax put it out because we gave it to others and they wouldn't because, no, you can't demonize a victim. I said, there is no victim. "Oh, no. So with the fix is in, everybody knows that the wider question and the wider problem for America is this is not just happening to me. And when I was on Hannity on Tuesday, I recommended Cheryl Atkinson's book, Smear, which goes through it, and Beck is featured prominently in that book. All right? It goes through it, who's doing it, where's the money coming from, and there hasn't been anybody that said Cheryl got it wrong.
No, I tell you, Bill.
Have you seen Cheryl on 60 Minutes? Have you seen her on the CBS Morning News or Good Morning America?
No, she's been removed and her voice has been silenced. But I was shocked. I didn't know. I had no idea I was in that book of Cheryl's and. The first chapter or two are about me because she said they perfected it with me.
Yes.
They used me as the guinea pig, the first
and
one.
Who wouldn't be if you were looking for a guinea pig? Who wouldn't?
So now that's not
want to use Glenn Beck.
I mean, that's really not helpful here, Bill. It's really not helpful.
I'm sorry.
Let me ask you some more uncomfortable. Have they offered you your spot back?
No.
At Fox?
No.
When are they going to?
I'm telling you.
I know. You'll tell me whatever you have to tell me now because you're in negotiations with Fox, and you don't want to say anything. That's what I hear. That's what America heard, Bill. That's what America heard.
That young British woman. Peace, love, truth, honor. Okay, come on back.
Whatever. I don't even know what you're talking about. Okay, so Bill,
at the beginning of your show.
yeah. Whatever. I don't listen to my show.
Okay, there's a bell in there.
So Bill, let's switch gears and let me please try to pry you off of all of this Fox nonsense, and get to the tax plan of Donald Trump.
Yes.
There's some good things in it. There's some okay things in it. It would be great if this is where we ended. Why does he negotiate and start at such a place? I mean, it's like he doesn't understand the Overton window at all. It's like you should be saying, we're going to abolish the IRS. And then when you get down to, okay, we'll keep the IRS, but it's going to be a flat tax of 20%, everybody's like, wow, well, that's so much more reasonable.
I see what you're talking about.
He starts they don't wishy-washy.
They don't use any strategic thinking and presentation. I can't speak for the president or his advisors. I really don't know why they do what they do. I think that most people in America, most working people, honest people, would benefit from this. That's really all I care about. It looks like it's fair in the sense that it would give people more power. Money is power, okay? And that's what I want to do. I want to empower the individual so they can have as a good a life as possible.
But let's say if you're struggling, and and you're struggling to make ends meet. You were fired, and you had to leave with a $25 million settlement, and
rough today.
And you're struggling. Somebody who has that could end up paying a lot more in taxes under this because it looks like they're going to come after people who do make a lot of money.
Yeah, people at the high end will pay more, or it will be flat. So when Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader for the Democrats, comes out and says this is wealth fair, he's lying.
Oh my gosh, it just
he's lying.
Nuts.
All right. Now the real objection is the corporate tax because, as Bernie Sanders put it, this is unfair. More billionaires. And you look at these people and you say there isn't any tax cut, all right, that you would approve.
No,
that's going to stimulate the economy. You just will not do it. But here's the fascinating part. If Donald Trump doesn't get it passed, I don't think he's going to be reelected. I mean, I think that'll be the end.
Wow.
I really do.
Do you think he will get this passed?
It's what it's going to come down to is who's going to sabotage him in his own party. And that's kind of like we should have a guessing contest. Which Republican senators are going to turn and stab Trump in the back, in the face, in the front? So let's say Susan Collins, who really isn't a Republican, she's from Maine, she'll figure out a way not to vote for it, right? That's likely. Mm-hmm. Now, Rand Paul, you would think that he would vote for it. Because if he doesn't, he's over. I mean, they'll never reelect him in Kentucky ever. So you figure he's in. John McCain, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he walks on in and go, it's just not right. So
no, John McCain. Honestly, John McCain is making Ted Kennedy look like a conservative lately.
Yeah,
he's really.
So all right. So you say McCain and Collins. That's two. So he needs, if he gets two more defections, he's in trouble because Schumer's threatened all the Democratic senators by saying, look, if you vote for a tax cut, number one, we'll run somebody against you in your primary. And number two, we'll cut off every penny from the Democratic National Committee so you won't have any money.
Bill O'Reilly, do you notice that
BillO'Reilly.com? Is that what you said? Yeah.
Do you notice that he's not wearing the suit?
Really?
He's very.
I mean, yeah, of course I've noticed.
Right. Mm-hmm. Bill, you're going casual an awful lot. I wanted to know if you've heard about Forever 21 coming out with the new Taco Bell clothing line.
I can't wait.
Yeah,
I'm going to dress like a burrito.
Yeah, right. I mean, what have we come to when Taco Bell has a clothing line out that is going to be sold in the malls?
Well, they better watch out, or Media Matters will boycott them like Ivanka Trump.
Right. Boy, the Ivanka Trump stuff is just.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we were talking about previously. That what did Ivanka Trump do to anyone? Nothing. So these idiots get to Nordstrom's and they say, hey, if you don't dump her clothing line, we're going to put the color of change outside all the Nordstrom stores and scream you're a racist. How long are Americans going to put up with this? That's my question. How long are we the people going to put
Bill,
up with this?
we don't even know what the freedom of speech means in this country anymore. I mean,
well, that's one of the reasons, and I'm sure we'll get to Killing England, the number one book in the country right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Again.
But people have got to do it themselves. They've got to start to get away from the machines and get away from just being interested in what their own pursuits are and say, you know what? Our freedoms are really under siege. This country is changing for the worse. And they did that to some extent with the NFL, Beck. Last night, you didn't see anybody sitting. All the players stood up.
Yeah.
Now, granted, they were tickling each other and doing the lambada, but they didn't kneel.
I'm fine with that.
Right?
The lambada?
Yeah, the dance of love.
The dance of lambada. I think that's a partial lobotomy and a dance move, but I'm not sure.
Right,
but
something
go ahead.
like that.
Yeah, all right. But the thing on this was even Donald Trump was wrong on freedom of speech. He said, they should be fired. Well, I mean, as a private corporation, yes, they could.
Where he was coming from.
Yeah, but he's also the president of the United States. I mean, that's you don't want the president. I wouldn't have wanted Barack Obama to say things like that because usually he was saying it about people like me and you. So
here's why I don't care about that anymore. He gets everybody, Trump does, engaged. So everybody starts to pay attention. That's hard to do.
Yeah. Okay, I guess we're out of time. I just cut Bill O'Reilly off. Back with more of Bill here in a second. Let me switch to healthcare, Bill, because I think when you said, which I think is pretty important, what you just said about taxes, that you don't think if Donald Trump doesn't get this passed, you don't think he will be president or he'll win in 2020. I think this is going to cause, the healthcare thing is going to cause so much damage to everyone involved that I don't know how any of this shakes out. Because they failed to repeal or replace Obamacare, 47 out of the 50 cities in America, Obamacare coverage will be unaffordable by the end of next year. And in so much, the families will need to incur an extra $28,939 before a plan will become affordable. On average, the family of three will now have to earn a six-figure salary or $110,823 for coverage to be affordable because of Obamacare. This is going to change the landscape of everything politically.
Okay. A very interesting analogy, but there's a difference. Because I do this BillO'Reilly.com thing, I have much more access to individuals because they can reach me faster and more direct, okay?
Yep.
We've got hundreds of thousands of people now that I hear from, not all of them, but we have a lot of input coming in.
Right.
When the health care thing went down, the vast majority of my audience, which is not a strictly conservative audience, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's traditional, but not strictly conservative.
Yes, I agree.
Weren't that angry at Trump, okay? Their anger was turned into McCain and the Democrats,
mm-hmm.
okay? They don't know who Susan Collins is or Murkowski. And they saw that Trump wanted to repeal and replace, but he was sabotaged. That won't happen with the tax cuts because the tax cuts are so much more immediate. And Trump promised that it would happen. Yes, he promised Obamacare would go away too, but this was the economic basis upon which Trump was elected, that he is a problem solver in the economic realm, that he can get things done, that he can make deals. That's why he was elected.
Right.
One, the folks will tolerate, and it'll come back because you're right. I mean, people are going to just, when they see what's going to happen the next 2 years. Oh my God!
When literally you have to make $110,000 to afford insurance, it's going to be
right.
It'll be horrible.
And it's going to be horrible for the Democrats because the Democrats are invested in this insanity. But
so are the Republicans.
He's got, some are. But the tax cut, Trump's got to make the deal. He's got to make the deal, or the independents, which decide elections now, will flee. Not his base. He'll keep his base at 33, 35%. But the others, the independents, will flee.
So have you heard about the Retirement Income Security Act of 1974, ERISA, the Employment Retirement Income Security Act? ERISA. Can you explain this, Stu?
Yeah, it's an interesting move by Trump, and they're talking about doing it now. And it's being reported as he's going to have some big executive order that's going to overturn Obamacare. I don't read it that way at all. When you look at the details, basically the act was from the 70s. It allows big companies, that's how it's typically been used, to create their own healthcare systems. And they don't have to deal with any of the regulations. So they can insure their employers without having to deal with all what they now have as Obamacare regulations. And the way it's typically been, interpreted is this idea of commonality. People all working for IBM, right, can be interpreted a bunch of different ways.
In other words, you could say all Catholics,
or all farmers, or
right.
And so the idea is Trump is just going to interpret this law on the loose end, meaning that it's not going to have to be a super tight reason that you have commonality, but really a much looser definition of that word, which I don't think is an executive order. It's an interpretation difference, and it's the type of thing that could be overturned by the next president. But it would essentially allow people to go into separate healthcare systems outside of Obamacare and get much, much lower rates. It's a pretty big deal. And of course, they're also saying that they think it's going to collapse Obamacare because, getting around those restrictions and all the crazy regulations are going to change the cost structures.
Well, it'll change the cost structure because the healthy people that are responsible, that want health care for their family, they'll be the industrious ones that will do this, and that'll just leave the sick and the ones who are just going to join up when they get sick into the government system, which we also said that's inevitable. That's what's going to happen. So have you followed this at all, Bill?
I feel like I'm listening to an episode of Dr. Kildare.
Really? Because that's amazing, because I'm not old enough to remember Dr. Kildare.
How about Ben Casey?
No. Marcus Welby, kind of. Mm-hmm. But okay. I'm more of emergency, Squad 51 kind of guy.
Yeah. All right.
Because I think that I really think it's interesting solely from the idea that this is supposedly the Trump administration and Rand Paul working together on a solution that is within the law and is not some unfair executive order. Rand Paul is a constitutionalist. He wouldn't be pushing for an executive order like this, I don't think.
No.
This would be an interesting solution for a lot of people.
So,
a lot of folks, Bill. Maybe if I say it that way, you'd come on.
I'm not opposing anything. I mean, you guys are so much smarter than I am. I'm just coloring here.
Oh, my gosh. I know.
Whatever you tell me to do, I'll do.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let me switch gears to Otto Warmbier's parents.
Yeah.
They came out this week, and they were talking about how the North Koreans had taken pliers to their son, that he was blind, they had beaten him, and it's a pretty compelling story. However, the coroner has come out and said that's not true. His teeth were fine. What's happening there, Bill? What do you think that is?
The grief takes a lot of different faces, and this family is just absolutely destroyed and devastated because Otto was, I believe, murdered by the North Koreans. So are they overstating it? Perhaps.
I believe he was murdered by them as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that this North Korean regime are as evil as any regime on the face of the earth, and I'm including Iran in that.
Yeah.
And, it may have to come to someone saying if they attack someone else, then I think that Trump will move against them.
Let me switch to Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, the stuff is starting to stack up at the docks and at the airports. And this is a disaster of biblical proportions. I mean,
this is a parallel to New Orleans and Katrina.
I think it's bigger than that. I think it's much bigger than that.
Yeah, it certainly would, but the same problems are in place.
Correct.
When you saw what happened in Texas and the way that the Texans dealt with it, you were dealing with a efficient government. You were dealing with people who are basically organized and responsible, so that they were able to take the aid that was offered and really move quickly.
Yeah, but
living in Florida.
But also, Texans, I mean, it's not an island. And so people came from all over Texas. They're still going every weekend.
Yeah, sure.
They're still going. And they have gas and they can get places. They don't have any fuel. They don't have cell phones. They have nothing. So
let me make my point here.
All right. Okay. All right.
All right.
Hey, you're so
the
hostile.
Government of Puerto Rico is basically inefficient. So was the government of New Orleans.
Yes.
Okay? So that when disaster strikes, their response is not going to be as effective as the Texas or Florida response.
Correct.
Period.
Correct.
All right. So what we have now is the aid is coming in, but it's not being distributed because the infrastructure is devastated and there's no organization at the local level. So it's going to get to the folks. It's just going to take much longer. Now, what can any human being do? Trump's going there on Tuesday. I don't know what anybody can do when you don't have cell phone service, when your infrastructure is knocked out. You can't get truck drivers to truck this stuff into the inner portions of the island.
They don't have any gas to get their trucks moving.
But they're bringing things in at a record rate. The Marines are on the ground.
We have 5 or 10? I think we have 10,000 FEMA workers. We're at the hospitals. The governor of Puerto Rico said, hey, don't bring the USS Comfort in yet, the naval hospital ship that just arrived, I think, yesterday or is on its way. They're saying, don't bring that in. We need to fix the local hospitals first. So we sent in people and teams to get the generators and to get everything going with the hospitals. Now that they've cleared one of the ports, they can actually pull the hospital ship in.
Right.
I mean, he seems like he has done everything that he could do and is supposed to do.
You're talking about Trump now?
Yeah. I mean, it seems like he's done it.
Every circumstance is different, but there doesn't seem to be a dereliction on the part of the federal government. But if you put on CNN, of course there is, and they're all racist and on and on.
Okay, so one last question on Puerto Rico, and that is the Jones Act. Are you for a repeal of the?
Yes, I am. I mean, if you can
full
get
repeal,
aid,
not just temporary, but like really repeal that. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. And Beck and I should lead that. Look, if somebody else wants to help out Puerto Rico or any place else in America, they should be able to help out without a bunch of bureaucratic nonsense. And, in the post-apocalyptic society where the zombies attack, we're going to need a lot of help back.
Exactly.
So we got to get rid of that Jones Act.
Okay, I'm not sure about the zombie thing, but I agree with you. Okay.
You're not sure about the zombie thing?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that.
No. Have you ever been to Bolivia? No, I'm only kidding. It's a joke, you Media Matters people.
The new book, Killing England, is on sale now.
Beck.
Number one book in the country. And you're welcome, Bill. You're welcome.
No, you made it. Listen.
No.
If I had to redesign the cover, I would have George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and Glenn Beck, everyone.
Right. That's the first time he's ever used my first name.
Oh, my gosh.
I think that's the first time he's ever used my first name. Let's write this day down. It's a special day. Bill O'Reilly at BillO'Reilly.com. Find his new book, Killing England, on sale everywhere. Thanks, Bill. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, talk soon.
All right, bye-bye. Some sort of a, I hate to use this term, but like a ray gun. We don't know exactly what they're doing, but 20 diplomats, U.S. diplomats, have gone home. They have hearing loss and other symptoms. They're being hit by something. We're under attack by the Cubans, and we don't know what it is yet. Also, there was something else we want to mention before the week closes out. The son of Hamas, which I think his dad either was the founder of it or ran Hamas. He was on this program about a year or so ago. He went to the UN this week, and he gave the Palestinian Authority, we're at the beginning of it, the next collapse is going to be the one that really hurts. When we collapse again, have another 2008 or worse, that's when the crap's going to hit the fan, because all the seeds have been planted now, and it's going to happen all over the world. And it's going to happen quickly. Once it begins, the dominoes are all going to fall. So we need each other. Let's help each other. Let's be good to each other. And let's remember what's important and what matters most. We wanted to get Phil Kerpen on because the Menendez trial, this is a senator who is still a sitting senator and is a co-defendant on 22 felony counts of fraud, bribery, and related offenses. Nobody's covering this.
It's incredible. I mean, you would think this is a gigantic story, and I feel like, is it one of those stories where, the media is just doing it out of bias? Is it that they think there really is nothing to this?
Because this is a senator, a Democratic senator, and he's still a member of good standing on the Senate Democratic Caucus. He's going through a trial, 22 felony accounts.
And they won't even say they will ask him to resign if he's convicted.
So Phil Kerpen has been following this, and we wanted to get him on. Phil, how are you?
I'm doing great, Glenn. It's been a while. How are you?
I know, it's been a while. It's great to talk to you. You're covering this, you're following it, and break it down, because I have absolutely really no idea what this is about, because nobody's covering it.
This trial has a little bit of everything, and there is a lot of print coverage. There are probably 4 or 5 print reporters that have been in the courtroom every day. There is close to zero national TV coverage of this. In fact, Media Research Center did a study. They found that I think CBS has spent 22 seconds on this trial in the first 3 weeks, and NBC has spent 0. So,
unbelievable.
That's and it's not because this trial wouldn't be an incredible ratings boom for them, because this trial features multiple international supermodels. It features private jets, luxury resorts in the Caribbean and in Paris. I mean, it's got all of these stunning visuals that should be a huge ratings boom, and yet, for whatever reason, TV's completely ignored it. But here's the basic version of the facts in this case. An eye doctor from Palm Beach, Florida, Solomon Melgen, developed a very special relationship with Senator Menendez, where he gave the senator access to his private jet whenever he wanted it to fly wherever he wanted, and access to his luxury resort villa at Casa de Campos, one of the most luxurious resorts in the Caribbean, in the Dominican Republic. He paid for his hotel rooms in Paris when he wanted to go there.
Jeez.
And they basically lived together. They lived this massive international luxury lifestyle. And all of it, by the way, was paid for with money stolen from me and you and everyone listening to this through Medicare fraud. The doctor, who is the senator's co-defendant, has already been convicted in a separate case of stealing $105 million from Medicare in one of the largest Medicare fraud schemes in history. And so you've got this massive international luxury lifestyle, and you have with money stolen from us.
Yeah, and you have Medicare. I mean, this is if a Republican were doing this, any Republican, this would be everywhere.
Well, they would have
nonstop.
quit the day the indictment came down, if not before. I mean, this guy was indicted 2 years ago, and he's only finally going to trial now. He stayed in the Senate the entire time. And the reason there are bribery charges here is that in exchange for this international luxury lifestyle, the senator is accused of doing three things for Dr. Melgen. Number one, he got visas for all of his supermodel girlfriends, Svetlana Buchik from the Ukraine and Juliana Lopez from Brazil, and a 22-year-old model named Rosiel Polanco from the Dominican Republic. In the case of the model from the Dominican, she had already been rejected for her visa when Menendez stepped in and said, do whatever it takes, and he got the visa approved. So there were the visas for the girl.
Phil.
Yeah.
America cannot have enough global supermodels.
I know. A lot of people look at the photos. A lot of people look at the photos I've tweeted and say, he did nothing wrong.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Supermodels, they can all come in. At night, in a tunnel. I don't care. Yeah. Anyway,
the second thing was a port security contract in the Dominican Republic. And this is kind of amazing because this guy was an eye doctor. He had no background in security of any kind. But basically, he bought a disused and a not honored port security contract that the Dominican Republic had signed with a company and then said, we're not going to honor that contract for whatever reason. This guy Melgen buys the contract and then has Menendez go to bat with the State Department and with Customs and Border Patrol and with the Commerce Department and tries to get the entire U.S. government to pressure the Dominican to honor this contract, which would have been worth hundreds of millions of dollars to Melgen. There was testimony just yesterday from a Customs and Border Patrol official who said that Senator Menendez called her and said, do not allow any security equipment to go to the Dominican Republic until they honor my buddy's contract. And the official said that she thought it was very odd that a U.S. senator was trying to undermine the law enforcement mission of Customs and Border Patrol. So that was the second thing, was trying to steer this Dominican port security contract. And the third, and they've just started hearing testimony on this, I think this coming week is going to be really explosive on this. The third thing, and by far the worst in my judgment, was that he actually tried to intervene with HHS to have the Medicare fraud investigation dropped. Basically, he wanted them to say that it was okay for Melgen to massively overbill Medicare by millions and millions of dollars, and he went to extraordinary lengths on that. In fact, at one point, he had a meeting with the HHS Secretary, Kathleen Sebelius, with Harry Reid in Harry Reid's U.S. Capitol office, asking her to intervene and to drop the overbilling dispute.
This is insane. I mean, this is an insane story, and especially when you can put it up to the news kind of the day, where everybody in the media is talking about Tom Price taking flights that cost $1 million. And I'm not excited about that story by any means, but we're talking about over $100 million. We've got supermodels, private jet flights, all sorts of crazy government contract business, and
a very powerful senator.
Yeah, and 22 seconds.
He was chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, in fact, and that was one of the things. When he was pressuring the State Department to intercede with the Dominican and push this port security contract to his friend, he told them, if you don't do it, I'm going to have hearings in my committee. So he was using his official position pretty clearly, and that's I think, going to make his defense argument. He's basically making two arguments in his defense, which I find very unpersuasive. We'll see what the jury thinks, of course, but he doesn't dispute that all of these facts happen. But what he says is, I call it the Bismarcky defense. He says, we were just friends. We were just friends. We were friends. A friend lets a friend use his jet in his resort, and a friend helps his friend with visas and government contracts. It was all just friendship. It wasn't bribery. To me, if being friends with the person who, corrupts his official office so that you can both live an international high life together, if somehow friendship makes that legal, then the laws are very flawed in this country.
Yeah.
If that's legal, then the law is not sufficient, because that should not be legal. It's not ethical. It's not acceptable. So this friendship defense is sort of one of the central arguments. The other is based on the McDonald decision at the Supreme Court, the Bob McDonald decision, which really narrowed the definition of official acts. And they're trying to argue that, look, as a senator, he didn't take any official actions when he was pressing the executive branch to do things like approve visas or pressure port security contracts or drop a billing dispute, because a senator can only vote on legislation as an official act. And the government's response to that argument is basically, if that's right, then the bribery statute would allow putting a PayPal account up on a senator's website and saying, give me $50,000 and I'll advocate whatever your issue is with the executive branch. That can't be the case. But we'll find out. I mean, we'll see in this trial whether the definition of official act is now so narrow that a senator can take bribes in exchange for taking action, with respect to the executive branch. And so the defense arguments here, in my judgment, don't dispute any of the corrupt facts. And therefore, even if somehow he's acquitted, which I consider unlikely, but even if somehow he's acquitted, if the Senate Ethics Committee is worthy of its name, he ought to be kicked out of the Senate anyway, because he doesn't dispute that he did all these things.
So, Phil, can you put this on a scale? Can you compare this to any other scandal? I mean, this is huge. Can you compare this to any other scandal that you've seen?
I mean, there's really no comparison to anything, at least in our lifetimes. I mean, there was a senator who was kicked out for corruption in the 40s, I think. I don't know too much of the details of that case, but we've never seen anything quite like this, just the scale and the scope and the brazenness of it. Here's something that's kind of interesting. One of the things the prosecution kept saying in their opening statement is he did all of this for a man who wasn't even a constituent, because the doctor's from Palm Beach, Florida, Menendez is a senator from New Jersey. He basically was dedicating his office to the service of somebody who wasn't even a constituent. And Menendez's lawyers responded, well, no, U.S. Senate is a national office, so everyone in America is his constituent. And the judge said, I don't think so. And he actually ordered briefing on the definition of the word constituent. So.
Wow. That's amazing. Are they, because I'm surprised, if this was a Republican, every media member would go to every Republican and ask them their opinion on Menendez.
To disavow him.
Yeah. Will you step down? Has there been any attempt at that? And are the reason why the Democrats are sticking by them because they think Christie will, since he's still in office for a few more weeks, it seems, that he would give a Republican the office if he has to step down, and they'd have an advantage in the Senate?
The media showed a little bit of interest a few weeks ago, right when the trial started, and CNN did some questioning. CNN has actually done pretty good coverage of this trial on their website, but almost nothing on the TV. I don't know why.
Well, you only have 24 hours.
Yeah, right. You only have 24 hours a day. Yeah. Some of the Democrats have been asked. Chuck Schumer's been asked. There have been some RNC trackers out asking sort of this. The amazing thing to me is the Democrats, a lot of Democrats have been asked this question. Do you think Menendez should resign if he's convicted? And they won't even say yes to that. They'll kind of say, I don't know, he'll have appeals. I don't know, a convicted felon in the Senate might be all right.
What?
No, right? No, there's not.
So you're a convicted felon. You're a convicted felon. You lose your right to vote, but not you lose your right to vote in the Senate.
Correct.
That's
and
crazy.
To kick someone out of the Senate under the Constitution, you need a 2/3 vote. And so if they do an expulsion vote and the Democrats want to rally behind him, they could cast one of the worst votes of their career and actually keep him there. But if you vote to let a convicted bribe-taking felon senator stay in there, I think that's a vote you're going to have a problem with for the rest of your career, which may be brief. Now, the reason, you're correct, the reason they want to stall and run out the clock is if a conviction comes down next month, they're going to be looking at the calendar and saying, Governor Christie's only in office until January 16th. All the polls say that Phil Murphy, the Democrat's probably going to win that race in November. So if we can somehow stall and run out the clock and say, he's pursuing appeals, and maybe he'll announce a leave of absence, which has no legal meaning, and get to January 16th, then he can resign, and we'll have a Democratic governor appointing a replacement instead of a Republican. So they're just trying to run out the clock for political advantage, I think, is what's happening.
Phil, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks as this trial continues. I'd love to get some updates from you. Thank you so much. Dangerous leftist Democrat went out and had a mission to kill all of the Republicans in Congress, and Steve almost didn't make it. He returned yesterday with a walker and some assistance, but he looked pretty healthy, and it was very emotional. Here's what he said.
When I was laying out on that ball field, the first thing I did once I was down and I couldn't move anymore is I just started to pray. And I will tell you, it gave me an unbelievable sense of calm knowing that at that point it was in God's hands. But I prayed for very specific things. And I'll tell you, pretty much every one of those prayers was answered. And they were some pretty challenging prayers I was putting in God's hands. But he really did deliver for me and my family. And it just gives you that renewed faith in understanding that the power of prayer is something that you just cannot underestimate.
And he would just be the guy who would scream, "Get off my lawn!" And everybody in the neighborhood would scatter, and they'd be afraid because he knew everybody in the neighborhood, and he was going to tell your parents. And that's who he is. And
of course, I was doing this in 1957. Because that's
he was that guy. He was that guy when he was 8 years old. When he was 8, he was doing that. Welcome, Pat. How are you?
I was 8 in 1957. Wow, am I older than I thought?
Yeah, you weren't even born in 1957.
No, I was not. No, I was not.
You were born in 1953.
No, I was not. I noticed that you guys are avoiding the real issue.
The real
today.
issue?
Yeah.
Well, we've avoided it.
It's pathetic.
Yeah.
I mean, how long can you avoid calling a racist? The racist racism of white supremacist Melania Trump. I can't believe you're not even. Why? You didn't even lead with this today.
No,
you didn't talk about it at all today.
No, we were covering up for the.
You sure were.
The racist.
It's pathetic. I mean, I thought we were at least going to, we wanted to give the guy a chance and his wife, but we're going to call it when we see it, and when it's wrong, we're going to call him out.
So what exactly has Melania Trump done?
Oh, please. Like you don't know. Fortunately, there's Cambridge Elementary School librarian who called her racism out when she donated Dr. Seuss books to the school. And I was like, thank you, Ms. Librarian, for pointing out how racist Dr. Seuss books are.
Okay, wait. Dr. Seuss was a socialist.
And a racist. No, I do not like green eggs and ham. That's obvious code for I don't like black people. It's obvious.
I don't. It is not.
No. Would you like them here or there? I would not like them anywhere. Clearly what he's saying is you don't want to see blacks. They have no place in our society.
That's not what he's saying.
Eat them. Here they are. Pathetic. He's asking people to cannibalize minorities and especially black kids.
I don't think
it's just despicable. He wants to use them for food. And fortunately, the Cambridge, Massachusetts elementary school librarian wrote a blog post about how they're rejecting the donation that she gave.
Okay, so I do want to point out, as he's saying this, I am realizing that I would not eat them with a fox. Red fox. What color was he?
Oh my God,
he was red.
You know. No, he was black.
Okay.
Pretty sure he was black. I won't eat them on a train. What do you use to power a train?
Coal. It's black.
Which is black.
Black.
I mean, you are onto something. And this librarian, I dismissed her
at first,
up to about 20 seconds ago. But now,
this case is
this is a solid case.
It's undeniable.
Right.
She says it's racist. They're steeped in, Dr. Seuss is steeped in racist propaganda, caricatures, and harmful stereotypes.
Now, I
didn't cite any examples, of course. And last year or a couple years ago, Michelle Obama donated Dr. Seuss books to the same school.
But that was
they didn't seem to be racist
then.
then.
So hang on just a second.
At the same
school?
So
it's incredible.
Dr. Seuss they're steeped in racism. What? All the who's in Whoville?
I don't know. The stars on theirs?
There's no, there are no colors or
well, green. I mean,
they're not real people.
No.
They're not.
Yeah.
They're.
Yeah. But I mean, in all, because this is now the second time we've actually discussed star-bellied sneeches in this segment over the past week or two. But the star-bellied sneeches book is totally a commentary on racism. And it's about
and how silly
racism is.
And
it's the whole point
Yertle the Turtle is all about fascism.
Yeah, it's true. It
is.
Yeah.
It was.
Is it?
Oh yeah.
I didn't catch the deeper meaning of Yertle.
How did you?
It's been a while since you haven't had kids reading Dr. Seuss
Not
in a
for
while.
a while.
Yertle the Turtle is the greatest. I think it was written about Hitler, and it's all about fascism.
Wow.
And I mean, Dr. Seuss.
And you're right. He was a socialist.
He was a socialist.
Yeah.
How could you possibly say Dr. Seuss was? I mean,
it's the hate the Trumps so much that it's gotten this ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's
where
funny.
they can't even donate books to a school without getting hammered
I was really
for
offended. I was really offended that what she said was, and let's see if I have this story in front of me, because this quote from her is just so snotty. She said, I'm an advocate for inclusive libraries. I work in a district, however, that has plenty of resources, which contributes directly to excellence. My students have access to a library with over 9,000 volumes and a librarian with a graduate degree in library science. Oh my God!
In other words, we don't stoop to Dr. Seuss.
Guys, a library
or donations.
It's a book with shell. It's a big room that has shelves with books on it. Yeah. It's not a science.
Why not go out of your way to give gift books to underfunded and underprivileged communities?
Which I'm sure she's also done.
Right.
I'm sure. Mm-hmm.
And why don't you go out of your way and say, wow, thank you very much. We're really fortunate to have these books. I'm going to give them to a school that I know of.
Yeah,
because they're so blind with hatred they can't do
I know.
that.
I don't know.
Can't do it.
Take your master's in library science and move to a needy community where they actually need someone in that role.
Or,
instead of staying in Cambridge.
Since you seem to be such a leftist anyway, why don't you just do what all good leftists do and burn the books?
It's a good idea.
Could I get Justice Ginsburg, please, who is looking so healthy lately? I don't know if you see her. She's really sick, isn't she? Did she have cancer or something?
She did, but I think
this is just
okay at the time.
old, because how old is she now?
84.
Oh, she looks
84.
every bit of it.
She does, and she can't hear. And the guy had to repeat. Was Charlie Rose, right? He had to repeat the questions over and over and over. Are you talking about the interview she did with him?
Now listen to this. Listen to this answer. Tell us. What happened? What happened? What do you think happened in the last election? Here's Justice Ginsburg.
You think sexism played a role in that campaign?
Do I think so?
Yes.
I have no doubt that it did.
Yay! Let's clap! Let's clap! Now's the time to clap!
Can we stop for a second?
I think it was decisive.
Why is that a clap line?
I know.
Why?
terrible?
Seriously.
Yeah.
Why is that a clap line? Because if it did happen, you should be horrified.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If she's just saying it for political reasons, then you clap because, hey, yeah, she's on our side.
Right.
If it really happened, you don't clap for that.
Yeah, this happens with global warming a lot. Like someone will come up and be like, global warming, if we don't stop what we're doing, it's going to kill 9 million people. Yeah! They said it! They said it! 9 million people are going to die! And it's like,
crazy.
you're supposed to be rooting against people
really
dying.
crazy.
If you're a real journalist, isn't your follow-up then, was it sexism when Barack Obama beat her in 2008? Was that sexism too?
Yes,
Isn't that your next question?
I bet they would say yes.
Not for this guy. He doesn't challenge her at all.
Go ahead, play the rest of the clip, please.
That it was
Decisive. In other words, if Hillary Clinton had been a man, she would have won that election going away.
There's so many things that
Good golly.
might have been decisive, but that was a major factors.
Can I tell you something? When I was in Nantucket...
Makes you feel good she's a Supreme Court justice,
doesn't it? Yeah. So when I was up at the Nantucket Project, I said, and got a big laugh, they said, the question was, why did Hillary Clinton lose? And I said, she was awful. She was just awful. And nobody laughed and nobody clapped. She was awful. She was one of the worst candidates that I've seen in my lifetime. She was awful, an awful candidate. And she was thoroughly corrupt. Everybody laughed. I mean, it wasn't a laugh like,
really?
It wasn't a laugh like, ha ha ha, he made a joke. It was like, yeah, that's true. It was kind of,
and from all the people who voted for her anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
that's great.
There's such a recognition.
Oh, she's
outside
corrupt.
of
Everybody
the
knows
media.
it.
Yeah, there's such outside of the media. There's such recognition with regular people that voted for her. Oh yeah, she's absolutely corrupt.
Well, there's a lot of that goes along with people who voted for Trump too. Like they don't necessarily love him, but he was closer to what they wanted to deal with at the time, and so
they love one thing
held their
about
nose.
him, that he speaks his mind. They love that about him. I that's what I've come to realize. They just love that he's outrageous at times with his speech, and they like that because nobody else is, and so they excuse everything else.
I just wish we would see the same boldness that we see in speech with policy. We have a tax plan that just came out.
Terrible.
That is, it's a moderate.
It's actually an increase on a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think it's overall, a slight improvement to what we have.
It's okay.
It's not the worst plan ever.
No.
But I mean, it's not bold at all. It is. I mean, I would be
who was the
disappointed
guest?
in George Bush for proposing that, or any other Republican.
Oh, yeah.
Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, anybody.
Was it David French that was on with us yesterday, the day before, who said the rhetoric does not match the policies? We are fighting like one side is the devil, to the other. We're fighting back and forth. And the policies, if you look at them side by side, they're pretty
about
close.
the same.
They're about the same.
Like,
what are we doing?
There's an argument to be made. You go all the way to the wall and you pay the political price for a 10% flat tax. And you don't care, and you go all the way to the wall. They want us to go all the way to the wall to go from 39 to 35?
And 32 to 35
and
for
32
others?
to 35.
And 10 to 12 for some others?
Yeah, it doesn't
make any sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Really doesn't.
And that is good. Any growth is good. So thank you, Mr. President, for that and everybody else that's moving things ahead. Interested to see what happens with the tax reform. I'm tired of MSNBC is just nonstop, and so is CNN. Nonstop. Donald Trump's getting rich off of this tax cut. Stop it. Stop it.
It's so ridiculous. They just they're using the
4% cut.
The exact same talking points they use on every single cut of taxes. Look, the people who pay the taxes are the ones that have money so that they have earnings, so that they have taxes.
And why do we have a 39% tax cut? Because, or 39% tax rate? Because when I say to you, they're taking 40% of your paycheck.
Yeah.
That's obscene, and everyone knows it.
Yep.
And that's just the federal. By the time you're finished with these clowns, with city and state, you are over 50%, nearing 60% of your pay cut of your paycheck. That's wrong. It's criminal.
It's completely ridiculous. But when you've taken 50% of the population and told them they don't have to pay any taxes, you can't cut theirs